A little later this year, Nothing is set to launch the Nothing Phone 3, and it looks really exciting. So today I'll give you a look into what I want the Nothing Phone 3 to have changed compared to the Nothing Phone 3A Pro, and what really needs improvement, and just some functions that would be really nice to see in this more expensive flagship phone. So let's get into it. So for the camera, I want pretty much the same camera system as in the Nothing Phone 3A Pro. It's really solid with this periscope camera and the not triple 50 megapixel camera system. Actually, it has an 8 megapixel ultra wide. That's one of my main gripes with the Nothing Phone 3A Pro, and I really want them to change that with the Nothing Phone 3 to put a 50 megapixel ultra wide camera in the phone, because they've had a 50 megapixel ultra wide on all other Nothing phones except for the CMF Phone 1. And then for a screen, I want pretty much the same screen in the Nothing Phone 3, because the Nothing Phone 3A Pro screen is really good. Like, it's an AMOLED that's bright and 120 Hz and a big screen too. So I don't really see anything to change there. It's overall a really good screen. Then I also want them to put a bigger battery in this phone, because new tech has been released that makes batteries much smaller, so Nothing can put a bigger battery in the phone. Currently all other Nothing phones have had a 5000 mAh battery, and I want the Nothing Phone 3 to have an even bigger battery. They don't need to improve it that much, but I think 5500 mAh would be a good suggestion. Maybe even 6000, that would be ideal. And then I also want Nothing to put Qi 2 in this phone, and Qi 2 is kind of like MagSafe. It actually is the same dimensions, and I'm pretty sure also works with MagSafe accessories, and it's a magnetic wireless charging solution, which is really cool. It's basically MagSafe, just an Android version. And the reason I want Nothing to put this in their phones is because Nothing's design language is really unique, and other phones that have put Qi 2 in their phones haven't actually put it inside their phones, but in a case that's sold separately. And I think a big magnet sticker on the back of a Nothing phone would just look really bad, so that's why I think they need to put it inside of the phone. For the design, I think they should evolve the design language of the Nothing Phone series. On the Nothing Phone 3A Pro, it's a pretty nice design, but I want them to do not entirely new design, but it at least needs to be pretty different, because it needs to be set apart from the budget offerings, because this is the flagship Nothing phone, so there needs to be some incentive for people to want to buy this phone, especially with the design. So I saw this render from K on Nothing.community, and this is just a concept of the Nothing Phone 3, but I really don't want them to make this design. This design, it just looks overly complicated in my opinion, and also it looks too much like the Nothing Phone 1 and Nothing Phone 2. I think they should do something different with the Nothing Phone 3, just like they did something different with the Nothing Phone 3A Pro compared to the previous Nothing Phone 2A and also the Nothing Phone 3A. Another concept I found is this design from Derren from Nothing.community, and I actually like this design very much. It looks more like the Nothing Phone 3A Pro than the previous render I just showed you, but it has a different camera layout than 3A Pro, and it has a different arrangement of the glyphs, with only 2 glyphs here actually. But I do think the camera bump is too small, considering how big the Nothing Phone 3A Pro camera bump is, but I actually quite like this render. But I think it still needs to be more unique, and more there needs to be more change from the Nothing Phone 3A Pro to the 3. One other small thing that I want them to improve with the Nothing Phone 3 is the water resistance, as currently it isn't that great. The Nothing Phone 3A Pro is only rated for IP64 water resistance, which is just light splashes that it can tolerate, and other phones in this price category that the Nothing Phone 3 is going to be in do have better water resistance. Nothing's phones have never had like that good of water resistance. One big thing I want Nothing to improve with the Nothing Phone 3 is better software support, because currently you can only get 3 years of Android updates on Nothing phones, and competitors like Google, Samsung and Apple have 5+ years of software updates. And especially when you get a flagship phone for like $600, you pretty much you want to have better software support. And me personally, I would maybe consider buying the Nothing Phone 3 over the 3A Pro if the Nothing Phone 3 had better software support, because then it will last longer and that would justify me spending more on a phone. For the chipset, Nothing is leaning more towards Snapdragon chipsets right now, as they talked about in many of the YouTube videos and blog posts on Nothing.community. And the chipset specifically that I think they're going to use is the Snapdragon 8S Gen 3, which is a little bit of a downgrade from the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3. And this chip has been put in phones for around $500. And I think this fits really good with the Nothing Phone 3, because Nothing usually doesn't have the best chip for the price. So putting this in a phone for around $600-700 would seem appropriate. It's also 85% better than the 7S Gen 3 that's in the 3A Pro, so it's a big step up in performance. Then another big thing that people have complained about with the Nothing Phone 3A series is that it has UFS 2.2 storage, which is a downgrade compared to almost all other Nothing phones except for the CMF Phone 1. And this is the speed of storage we're talking about. So independent reviews have said that you don't notice it that much. Only when you're, for example, taking pictures or shooting videos, then you'll see the difference, because the phone will start to slow down and lag a bit when you have UFS 2.2 instead of UFS 3.1. So I think on the Nothing Phone 3 they really need to put at least UFS 3.1 in it, and maybe even UFS 4.1, because I've seen a lot of other phones in this like $600 price range have UFS 4.1 storage. And also the RAM on the Nothing Phone 3A Pro is LPDDR4X, which is pretty fine, but for a flagship phone I think it should have LPDDR5X. So with this improved chipset, G2, a bigger battery, more software updates, it being more water resistant, and new design, and also improving the RAM and UFS storage speed, and considering that the Nothing Phone 2 released at $599 and the Nothing Phone 3A $459, I think it's pretty fair to assume that the Nothing Phone 3 is also going to be $599. I think this would be a pretty good price point for it. And it's actually pretty cheap for a flagship phone. That's because Nothing wants to be a more affordable brand that also has cool tech, and I really like that about them. So that was what I want in the Nothing Phone 3, and if you want to see content about this phone when it comes out, make sure to subscribe. And if you found this video helpful or you enjoyed it, make sure to give it a like. That's much appreciated and really helps the channel out. Thanks for watching.